Welcome back everybody to another MOTOBOB video. You join us at EICMA in Milan again, and we're at the CFMOTO stand. Now I asked you guys, which bikes have we not covered so far that you want to see? And I think categorically the most common answer was this, the 450MT. It's a brand new adventure bike from CFMOTO that looks absolutely awesome. And so in this video, we'll tell you everything that you need to know about it. Now let's have a look at the engine, and it's their 450 parallel twin that you'll also find in their naked bike, but I think it will suit this kind of adventure bike, you know, small to mid capacity, perfectly well. Now they're saying it puts out about 43 horsepower at 8,500 RPM, 44 Newton meters of peak torque at 6,250, so pretty much par for the course for this size of engine, and I think it'll make it a great competitor for something like the Honda NX500 that we looked at a couple of days ago in that affordable and, like I say, very slender adventure bike segment. Things that they called out specifically about this bike are the balancer shafts, which they say make it really smooth, but also it's got a 270-degree crank, which I think is a real asset. Bikes like the Honda 500s have a 180 crank, some of the smaller Kawasaki's as well, and it just gives them a bit of a flat tractor-esque sound, whereas a 270 like this is going to make it sound like one of those more tasty, bigger bikes, like the big parallel twins or even a V-twin. The other thing from the spec sheet that immediately jumps out at me and impresses me is that they say the dry weight is 175 kilograms. No wet weight quoted, but it'll be up around the 200 kilo mark, maybe a little bit below. But for me, that sounds nice and manageable and kind of what people are asking more for. Yes, we've got some amazing, big, expensive adventure bikes on the market, but equally there are people who want a bike that's more affordable, more manageable, not as big, lighter weight, but still that looks good and looks stylish and looks desirable, and I think that's what they've delivered here. Similar story for the seat height. You don't necessarily want something super tall because it makes it hard to get your feet down. Now it might look quite tall because it's on a stand at the back here, but actually it's 820mm in the seat as standard, which is really achievable for most riders. And also there's a low accessory seat in the parts catalog which takes another 20mm off it, so 800mm really does make it sound, I think, appealing to a wide range of riders, even those who are a little bit short in the leg. As for the rest of the ergonomics, well, it's a big wide handlebar, so lots of leverage. It's got that classic commanding adventure bike arm position, and also I'm noticing just how much the tank flares out to give you a bit of extra wind protection around the knees here, so you do feel quite cocooned. Also, the screen's not massive, but it is adjustable, so you can get it up and down, and that helps to dial in the height so that you can minimize buffeting for different heights of rider. And also if you're riding off-road and you don't want to, you know, hit it with your helmet, if you're stood up and you're getting over the front a bit, or if you want to, you know, minimize obstructions of your view, then it's nice to be able to pop it down, and it really is quite low there. Foot pegs, they say, are a dedicated foot peg position, so probably different versus the naked bike, and also they've got rubber inserts, so you can have those in on the road to minimize vibes, but then take them out off-road for more grip with the teeth around the edges, especially in the mud and the wet. That's a valuable feature. Now another thing that looks pretty impressive about this bike, to be honest, all round I think it looks really good, but is the suspension. It's KYB front and rear, and we've got an upside down fork here. Plenty of adjustability. You've got preload, of course, so you can run it with luggage and a passenger and make sure the bike sits level, but also 20 steps, they say, of damping adjustments, so really quite fine and should allow people to get the exact sort of suspension feel that they want. Also, a good amount of travel, 200mm front and rear, and that's going to give you a pretty decent 220mm of ground clearance, so it's not quite as tall as some of the really serious adventure bikes like the Tenere 700 Extreme or something like that, but certainly versus some of the smaller capacity and mid to small adventure bikes, it looks a bit more seriously off-road biased and quite a bit more capable, at least on paper anyway. Now wheels are looking good. We've got a 21-incher at the front and an 18 at the rear, so obviously that extra size means they roll well over rough terrain and off-road surfaces, but also you get a good choice of adventure tyres with a 90x90 21 at the front and the 140x70 at the rear. This particular bike comes on CST tyres, which are a little bit maybe budget build, but they look very similar in tread pattern to something like a Pirelli Scorpion Rally STR, so an on-off road tyre, probably a little bit more road bias. You've not got loads of mud clearance, but should be a good starting point for a standard tyre. Also, you've got spokes that lace to the edge, so I'm assuming these rims are tubeless, and that is a nice premium-ish feature on a bike at presumably more aggressive price point, and should mean that a puncture is more easily repairable by the majority of riders versus having to get the wheel out and swap proper tube. Now, before we get on to the next feature of this awesome looking bike, I just want to give a big thanks to our sponsors this week, and that's Metzeler Tyres and Insta360. Now, we use their X3 cameras to capture all of our riding footage back home, and I can't recommend them enough. They've been a game changer for our workflow and make shooting your rides so much fun. Basically, with a 360 camera, you can just mount it anywhere you want on the bike. They've got loads of motorcycle specific mounts to make that super easy, and you don't even need to worry about your framing or whether the camera's level, because once you get back off your ride, or even if you just stop off for a quick coffee, you can download the footage into the Insta360 app, and it's in there that you can reframe it and make sure it's level and take landscape or vertical crops. And so it really is super flexible, super easy to use, and for me, the most creative way to capture your rides. So look, do check out the link down in the description below if you want to pick up yours, and also you'll find a code down there which will get you a free gift with every X3 purchase. So once again, a massive thanks to Insta360 for their support of the show. It's meant that we can do more videos this year, do it better than ever, so we really appreciate it. And with that, back to the bike. As for braking, well, I don't have the full specs. They've only released a sort of fairly limited spec sheet so far, but we do have a single disc up front with a 4-pot caliper. I can see braided hoses as well, which is a nice quality feature. And the master cylinder up there has the Zhuan logo on it, so let's assume that the whole system is made by them. And for me, it looks, you know, pretty up to spec and as you'd expect for a bike of this stature. Now, technologically, I really like what they've done in the cockpit here. We've got a 5-inch color TFT display, which looks really, really good. A nice switchgear design, which has a direction pad that'll help you to navigate the menus and such. And they say through the dash, you've got Bluetooth connectivity, so you'll probably be able to manage calls and music and maybe even some navigation prompts, and also manage the ride arrays. So traction control is switchable for proper off-road riding where you might want to drift it, and also ABS is switchable on the rear wheel. I've also got to say, just everything has a nice feel to it in the cockpit. Nice grips, nice levers, and nice buttons on the switchgear, and it just looks impressively finished. LED lighting all round, which does affect the look, makes it look very modern with that stacked headlight design, and I think overall, it just is a great looking bike. It's got an air of the Tenere about it with that sort of rally raid image, but then they've done their own thing and given it their own CFMOTO style, and I will say, I feel like their design language is becoming more and more distinctive and more refined, and the finish on most of the bikes on this stand looks really quite good. No price on this one as of yet, but I've talked about the NX500, which I think is really the closest competitor. That bike I think is £6,799 for 2024, so that's exactly where you'd hope this bike will come in, but also for me, it looks slightly more desirable in the looks department, and also packs some features like the spoked rims and the 21 front and the longer suspension that make it, for me, look like a more interesting off-road proposition, and therefore they might even be able to charge a little bit more for it. It really does look like what the market has been asking for. Built to a decent price, not overly unnecessarily powerful, slender enough, good ground clearance, lots of travel on the suspension, some proper off-road bias features, and so I reckon this is going to be a great seller. But as always, let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. I always love to read your comments. Do check out our EICMA playlist, which I've got on the screen now. We've had loads of awesome bikes over the past week, so definitely have a watch. Hit subscribe if you've not already to see all of our videos as soon as they go live. Many thanks for watching, and we'll see you shortly in the next one.